Hey guys, so I wanted to make a video about me. How narcissistic. No, so I get a lot of questions about why I started this business. I get the question, what did you do before Cantrips Media, and etc, etc. So I thought I would give a backstory on that. So this will be a very long, probably boring video unless you're into this topic. I wrote notes on my iPad, so if I'm looking down, that's because I don't want to get off track too much, because I can talk about my business all day, every day. Let's just dive right in, shall we? So I went to college like any good Chinese girl would. I actually went originally for French education, found out I didn't really like teaching children, and I also learned to hate our education system. It didn't really feel like it was helping anybody, and I also realized being in the education system is not the way to kind of change or make change happen. My entire career story kind of revolves around this idea of I want to make a change, I want to improve something in people's lives. So that's why I thought being a teacher would be the way to go, because you touch a lot of individuals' lives and you make a difference. And I'm not saying that teachers don't make a difference, because they do, and they have such a hard time doing it because they're underrated and not treated correctly, and I hated that. I wanted to do more for teachers just in general, but I didn't know how to do that. I stepped out of that, but I loved language, so I went and did international business. But I did international business because I absolutely wanted to travel. If you took international business as a major, they forced you abroad in order to graduate. I knew if I didn't have something to kind of give me that shove, I would not go abroad. And I recommend to everyone to go abroad because it is a life-changing thing. I spent 6 months in China, again, like any good Chinese girl would, and I absolutely loved that experience and it changed my life. But regardless, I went to college. It took me 6 years because I ended up changing my major. Then I came out and I got a job, and it was awful. It was the only job after probably 100 applications. This is also why I think our education system sucks. Every single company wants you to have 1 to 2 years of experience for an entry-level position. You don't have that if you come out of college. If you come out of college and you're going into an entry-level position, you shouldn't have to have any experience. Now that said, I had internship experience and I still couldn't get a job. It frustrated me so much. Regardless, picked up a marketing job because that was my concentration. I found that enjoyable. I liked understanding like why people bought things, how to market to those people, and also really enjoyed design, and you get to design some things in that field as well. It just really kind of called to me. My first job was at a place, again, that helped children with learning disabilities, and again, I wanted to like make a change. I wanted to help people. Ideally, that was the place to do it. The problem was that it was really a very toxic environment. One of the managers there was so into everybody else's business that she actually made pretty much every worker there cry at some point or another. She made everybody dread their job. She was like right-hand woman to the boss, so she could get away with anything. I hated it. I literally, again, drove an hour to and an hour from. On the way there, I dreaded every single second I would have to be there. On the way back, I would cry for an hour, and it got to the point where it was so toxic and just such a horrible environment that it was actually affecting my relationship with my now husband. He wasn't my husband at the time, and he was like, if you don't make a change, like, we're not gonna be able to keep this relationship. That was when I was like, I changed things. I don't know, is this too much information? It probably is. So I actually, instead of staying for a year like I had planned, because again, I needed a year on my resume so I can take my resume to another place and say, look, I have a year of experience, now you can hire me. But because it was such a toxic environment, I ended up saying, okay, well, maybe I'll only stay for 6 months. And then 3 months into the job, I picked a different position and picked something that was closer. It also sucked, but for different reasons. But again, it was a marketing field, and in this position, I ended up doing a lot more with social media. And if you look at my social media now, you would never be able to tell that I was any good at it, because social media isn't really my favorite aspect of marketing. So I ended up working for a nurse staffing firm, again, making a difference by providing nurses in hospitals. I wasn't there for very long because the boss was narcissistic, and I said like this video is narcissistic because it's about me, but everything was about him. Like, it wasn't about staffing nurses. It just was about making him look good because he was staffing nurses in hospitals. I also didn't fit in with anybody. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a big nerd. All of the people there were more into like drinking and like going out to bars and partying and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, can I just stay home and, you know, roll some dice and play some D&D? Some of the other people that I worked with, they were super sweet and they never like made me feel uncomfortable or anything like that. But it was when they decided to join the rest of the company and go do things, it was always something I was like, I'm not into that, I'm going to pass. While I was there, my husband, who's a software developer, got hired on another firm. They were hiring a social media person and I was like, well, I'm okay at social media, like I could do this. I wasn't really looking at the time. I had only been at the new job for a few months. I was like, well, it doesn't hurt to interview, like I'll just give it a shot at least. Got accepted and they offered me like twice the money. So it was a no-brainer and I went to this company and I really enjoyed it. It was a group of nerds. It was a marketing firm and that's all we did was we helped small businesses, again, that underlying help. We helped small businesses market their services in the local area. Although there were a couple national accounts that I got to do social media for, which was pretty sweet. I really liked certain aspects of my job. I don't love doing social media, so I liked designing posts for social media. I liked designing things in general. It was not ideal. And then some stuff happened. The owners of the company had pretty much elevated one of the managers to a point of almost godlike ascension where she could do no wrong ever. Then she did something really wrong and they didn't do anything about it. And it caused half of the company to tank. That meant my husband got laid off as well as half of a company got laid off. I feel like they treated her more like family. It makes it awkward for everybody else. She didn't do anything to fix it. And that's the part, like, people make mistakes. Don't get me wrong. Like, people make mistakes all the time, especially in business, because running a business is freaking hard. I know this. But at any other company, she would have been fired. Instead, suddenly I was worried for my position. Not that they would have gotten rid of me because I was the only one who did social media and I handled 30 accounts. And that was the thing. We needed to hire more assistants because I couldn't take all of these things. I was already working overtime most days. I hated doing it. And so like we tried to get answers, tried to figure out like if my position was safe, and they kind of made it sound like that, but it also just sounded like they weren't doing anything to change the situation that we were in. It was at this position that I realized I did not want to work for someone who wasn't willing to work hard for me. In a way, I also determined that I kind of hate working for someone else. I never got a say. I never got to say, well, I feel like we should do this, and then people just do it. Like, I never got that freedom. I also thought that maybe marketing wasn't for me, which I don't think is necessarily true. I like aspects of marketing. Instead, I went to work at a Starbucks. So that's where the cafe dreams came from too. While I was like at my last marketing position, I also was doing a lot of tabletop gaming. So I like have a huge collection now of tabletop games. I got into D&D at the time, board games. I loved it, but I also loved the idea that something as small as a board game could bring so many people together because we were playing them at work as like team exercises. My husband and I would bring games to like family events or to things where maybe there were people we didn't necessarily know. You just get to know people if you play a board game and you do stuff. I remembered was in my college days, a cup of coffee can do the same thing. Like you can hand someone a cup of coffee and make a connection with that person. So I was like, why don't we combine the two things? And then I found out that there are places all across the US that do tabletop game cafes. That's what I want to do. So when I left the marketing job, I was like, well, before we jump into something that involves a lot of money for startup costs, let's just try being a barista again. So I went to Starbucks. I became a manager at Starbucks because I have always kind of lended myself to leadership positions. I enjoyed it, but it was hard because it was a Starbucks inside of a Target because I used to work at a Target and I went back to that Target when they got a Starbucks. And it, you know, in college you work in the summers and that kind of thing. I like always ended on a good note with Target and I didn't hate Target. But the problem was if you work in a Starbucks inside of a Target, you're actually employed by the Target. That particular setup means that Target is always the priority. So if you want to do your job well at Starbucks, you also have to man the floor in Target's eyes. I was getting some of that barista experience, but then I was also juggling things on the Target floor, and I just wasn't 100% happy with that. I left and I actually worked at a place called Aroma Joe's, which also is a coffee shop, and I went in as a manager and I loved it. I liked my coworkers there. I just enjoyed being a barista. I enjoyed connecting with customers and talking, and obviously I like talking. And during this time, I was also starting to make journals for D&D because I needed something. I was running my own campaign and I was like, what the heck am I going to do? All of these notes. I like planners. I have a whole, like, there's a shelf here. One whole section of the shelf is just all of my different planners that I use to track all of those 30 accounts that I manned at the marketing firm. So I would remember when to post things and what theme that they had, and like just all of that stuff. I organized it really well, and I spent time doing bullet journaling, but I did the crazy bullet journaling where you like design the whole planner. So I was like, well, let's just take that and put it in the D&D realm. Bam, the Dungeon Master's Guide to Adventure was born. I ended up fixing it up, and I was like, if I need this, maybe other people need this. And my husband was like, you should try to sell it. And I was like, okay. So I did a whole bunch of research. You can't just jump into things. Figured out like, okay, let's start out on Etsy because they'll do all of the heavy lifting for me. I won't have to make a website, that I could just throw them on there and go. I started out with 2 things in my shop. Etsy's like, you should list 10 items in your shop. No, I mean, yes, you should eventually get to 10 items in your shop because it shows that you're a shop and you have products, but whatever you've got, just throw it on there. If you wait, you'll never do it. Just go. I'm doing it. While I was at Starbucks, I started making some sales, but it wasn't like crazy. You know, it was something I was doing on the side. So then I went to Aroma Joe's and started selling a little bit more. But I also, one of my coworkers from the marketing firm was like, hey, we need a social media person and they're willing to pay you for part-time work. Do you want to do it? And I was like, well, I need money. At the time, I was thinking I need a lot of startup capital for a cafe. So I ended up doing my barista job and social media marketing and my Etsy shop all at the same time. That was the craziest year of my life. It got even crazier because then 2020 hit and things got complicated everywhere. Towards the end of 2020, during the holiday season, my journals just took off. I was selling them like hotcakes. I couldn't keep things in stock. I mean, I still couldn't keep things in stock just this last holiday season, but like it just flew off the shelf. I was like, I think I could do this full time. I quit my marketing job and then I talked with my husband and we like figured out, okay, if I ended up failing, would we have the safety net in order to, you know, bail me out? He was like, go for it. You really enjoy doing this. You are making money and you're your own boss. Honestly, part of the reason that I am doing what I do is because of him, because I have someone who's always got my back and has always pushed me to do things. And not that I need the push, like once I figure out I want to do something, I'm just doing it. But like, that's what happened with YouTube. I think I could do a YouTube channel. Oh, I have one. I quit my barista job early 2021. I think it was like February. I ended up doing this full time and I've added way more products. I have way more time for design. I am not overworked because again, I was working 3 jobs. That meant I was working about 60 hours a week. I went from 60 hours a week to now I do about 32, which is ideal for me because I can work 6 hours a day. I always have felt like those last 2 hours, my brain is just mush. So it ends up working out way better. When you own your own business, you're pretty much always working. So I'm always answering messages. I'm always answering, you know, emails and things, even when I'm not on the clock. It's been the best thing in my entire life. This is a really, really long, pretty boring video. That's my story. Don't judge me too hard. I know that things have changed. I still want to do the tabletop game cafe, but right now I'm enjoying what I'm doing. If there's particular questions about running a business, put a comment down there so that I know what you guys want to watch. Hit that like button if you want to see more stuff like this, or if you just like me, or if you just like videos, or if you like YouTube, or any reason at all, because likes are free and they don't cost you anything, but they help me a ton. If you want to see more behind the scenes at Cantrips Media, look at this playlist right here. It's got a whole bunch of stuff like how I make journals, and how I design journals, and a studio tour, and this video will be in this playlist, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, you know, go over there. It's nice.